Menzoberranzan, power belongs to the matron mothers. It flows through bloodlines, through devotion to Lolth, and through the careful management of house politics that has defined Drow civilization for thousands of years. The rules are ancient, understood by every citizen, and enforced by the Spider Queen herself. Then there is Bregan D'aerthe, a mercenary band operating openly inside the city's shadows, owing allegiance to one man and one principle: profit. In a society built to suppress and sideline its males, this organization of houseless rogues and outcast Drow has carved out something that Drow tradition insists is impossible: independence. They have fought for noble houses and turned against them. They have sold information to both sides of a war on the same afternoon. They have toppled families with a whisper placed in the right ear at the right moment. Through all of it, Bregan D'aerthe has endured and grown stronger inside the most dangerous city in the Underdark. At the center of everything is a single figure whose story, ambition, and refusal to accept his assigned place gave this brotherhood its shape. A mercenary by birth, a rogue by choice, and one of the most dangerous minds in all of Faerun. His name is Jarlaxle, and the organization he built was always about more than just profit, but getting rich couldn't hurt. Jarlaxle Baenri was born to die. As the third son of House Baenri, tradition demanded his sacrifice to Lolth. Matron Evenelle Baenri pressed the ceremonial blade to her newborn son's chest and found that it would not pierce his flesh. Whatever force protected the child that night was enough to convince Evenelle that killing him would be a mistake. She declared him dead anyway and ordered his brother Dequeo to dispose of the infant. When Dequeo took the child in his arms, the residual psionic energy that had shielded him discharged outward and killed the older brother instantly. Jarlaxle had survived 2 attempts on his life on his first day drawing breath. Evenelle hid him rather than try a third time. Jarlaxle grew up as a Baenri, protected by the most powerful house in Menzoberranzan, operating entirely outside its structures. He attended melee magthair, learned strategy and swordcraft, and arrived at the defining instinct of his life. The system was broken, and a clever enough mind could build something outside it. Lolth returned the memories of his birth to him in time. He took it as confirmation that the Spider Queen's favor was a game he had no interest in playing. What Jarlaxle saw in Menzoberranzan was a city full of men like himself, capable, ambitious, and discarded. Survivors of fallen houses, former soldiers stripped of rank when their matrons died, rogues with skills and nowhere to put them. In Drow society, a houseless male had 2 real options: servitude or death. Jarlaxle built a third. His first lieutenant was Arathis Hune, a skilled assassin who would remain at his side for over a century. Together they took contracts, accumulated intelligence, and built a reputation that made houses reconsider the cost of ignoring them. Every conflict in Menzoberranzan was an opportunity to expand. Every fallen house left behind talented men ready to prove themselves. By 1018 DR, Jarlaxle and Arathis were operating with enough confidence to conduct raids on commission, including a raid on House Simfrey to acquire Zaknafane as a weapon master for House Do'Urden. The genius of Bregan D'aerthe was in what Jarlaxle understood about the world around him. Menzoberranzan ran on fear, faith, and house politics. Jarlaxle made himself essential to all 3. He sold mercenaries to houses at war, he sold information to their enemies, he seeded conflicts with a whispered rumor or a forged document. Jarlaxle used the city's instability as currency. He also protected what he built with unparalleled foresight. He shifted his base of operations regularly, he traveled with a concealed escort, he recruited beyond the traditional Drow hierarchy, adding hobgoblins, bugbears, and eventually even cast-off priestesses. This company gave its loyalty to him alone. His connection to House Baenri provided a protection the ruling council struggled to challenge. Jarlaxle made Bregan D'aerthe essential enough that destroying it cost more than tolerating it. The houses constantly vied for power, and Jarlaxle's ability to provide an edge to any who could afford it made him and his band an invaluable resource. On paper, Bregan D'aerthe is a mercenary company. It sells blades, intelligence, and influence to whoever can afford them. The organization Jarlaxle built operates on a single principle. Information is worth more than soldiers. Armies can be bought, trained, or destroyed. The right secret, placed in the right hands at the right moment, changes the outcome before the first blade is even drawn. Through a sprawling network of spies, informants, and embedded agents, Jarlaxle maintains a picture of the city's politics that outpaces any matron mother's intelligence. He knows which houses are plotting against their neighbors, which priestesses are losing Loth's favor, and which grudges are about to boil over into open war. When conflict arrives, both sides discover that Bregan D'aerthe has already made itself available for hire. This is the philosophy Jarlaxle calls profit in chaos. Interhouse conflicts are Bregan D'aerthe's most lucrative ventures. Few in Menzoberranzan know that many of those feuds were ignited at Jarlaxle's direction. He benefits from their instability, and in many cases, he plants it. The organization's base of operations sits hidden within the Claw Rift, the great fissure splitting Menzoberranzan's stone floor. Even the ruling houses hesitate to probe its depths. There, recruits are trained, alliances are formed, and the machinery of Bregan D'aerthe turns in near total secrecy. Every member swears a blood oath to the Brotherhood and to Jarlaxle personally. The insignia they carry is recognized throughout the Underdark as a mark of both access and warning. As Bregan D'aerthe's resources grew, Jarlaxle expanded outward through the Underdark's major cities, including Ched-Nasad and Blingdenstone. Each became a node in a web of intelligence and commerce feeding back to the Claw Rift. The band traded surface goods into the Underdark, including Netherese artifacts routed through the northern city of Luskan, with information flowing in both directions. For Jarlaxle, the surface world proved irresistible. In 1366, Bregan D'aerthe established a foothold in Kalimport, the sprawling port city of the southeastern desert, with Artemis and Treri helping to navigate its criminal landscape. Jarlaxle moved to absorb the Bacedoni Guild from within, placing in Treri as its nominal head while directing operations from behind. The Kalimport operation was cut short under the corrupting influence of Crinchinabon, but it taught Jarlaxle the value of surface cities as platforms for power. That lesson was applied to far better effect in Luskan. Over the following decades, Bregan D'aerthe embedded itself so deeply in the city's power structure that by 1483, one of its 5 high captains was a Drow agent named Beniago Baenri, operating under the human alias of Captain Kurth. Through ship Kurth, Bregan D'aerthe controlled the flow of trade, piracy, and intelligence moving through one of the Sword Coast's most strategically positioned ports. Their underground headquarters, carved into the ruins beneath the city, connected directly to Close Guard Isle and the surface operations above. Luskan became the crown of Jarlaxle's surface empire and remains its most enduring achievement. Jarlaxle even has his own public-facing establishment for food, drink, and gambling called One-Eyed Jacks. As the organization grew, Jarlaxle restructured it into semi-independent cells, each led by a lieutenant with jurisdiction over a specific territory or operation. The cells manage their own contracts, their own agents, and their own local politics, and all of them answer ultimately to Jarlaxle and his co-leader, Camuriel Oblodra. Crossing a Bregan D'aerthe agent means inviting retaliation from a company whose true size remains unknown to every rival in Menzoberranzan. What drives all of this, beyond profit, is independence. Every operation Jarlaxle runs is designed to ensure that no single power, no house, no matron mother, no deity can claim Bregan D'aerthe as its instrument. They have served House Baenri's interest when convenient and undermined the ruling council when profitable. The appearance of neutrality is itself a product Jarlaxle sells, and he prices it accordingly. What Jarlaxle rarely speaks aloud is that Bregan D'aerthe represents something the rest of Menzoberranzan would call heresy. Every houseless rogue who found a place in the company chose a life on their own terms. They chose freedom from Loth. Bregan D'aerthe endures because of the people Jarlaxle chose to build it with: assassins, psionicists, priests, and survivors, each selected for what they could contribute. Some rose to define the Brotherhood, some fell because of it. Before any of the other names that define Bregan D'aerthe's legacy, there was Arathis Hune. His own house had been destroyed, and its reconstituted house was barred to him. He had killed one of their nobles, so when Jarlaxle found him, Arathis had nowhere else to go, and that made him exactly the kind of recruit Jarlaxle valued most. He became Bregan D'aerthe's first lieutenant and the organization's most reliable weapon for work that required no witnesses. In 1018 DR, he rode alongside Jarlaxle on the House Simfrey raid, using a House Treyrock attack as cover, killing most of Simfrey's priestesses and recruiting roughly 40 warriors from both sides of the conflict. Around half of them joined Bregan D'aerthe on the spot. That single operation demonstrated what the band could be. For a century, while Jarlaxle managed Menzoberranzan's politics, Arathis handled the external work, most of it assassination contracts. He stood among the finest blades the city had produced, a swordsman of reputation and lethality. That reputation mattered to him. When Zaknafein Do'Urden entered Jarlaxle's orbit, a weapons master whose name carried a different kind of weight, Arathis felt his position slipping away from him. He grew resentful across the decades. He attempted to sabotage Zaknafein's duel with Duvan Treyrock through psionic interference. The attempt failed, and Arathis pushed further, conspiring with House Barrisindel Armgo to have the weapons master killed outright. Zaknafein anticipated the betrayal and killed Arathis. Still, he served Bregan D'aerthe for over a century and helped build the organization from the ground up. Where Arathis built his reputation on the dagger and the blade, his grandson, Valis, carved his own path with a pair of lightning-enchanted kukris, unusual daggers rare for Drow fighters. A seasoned scout and guide of the Underdark, Valis served Bregan D'aerthe across the 14th and 15th centuries with quiet competence, running extended operations across the surface world and beyond. When Matron Mother Triel Baenri needed a guide she could trust, it was Valis she hired to escort Quinthel Baenri's expedition through the Underdark during the Silence of Loth. Some within the organization have quietly speculated on his devotion to Veyron, a suspicion the organization has let lie. As of the current age, Valis Hune continues to operate inside Bregan D'aerthe's extended network, a trusted agent keeping information flowing from the Underdark to the surface. When House Oblodra fell in 1358 DR, dragged into the Claw Rift by Loth's wrath and the Matron Baenri's command, Jarlaxle pulled one survivor from the wreckage. He recognized immediately what Camuriel Oblodra represented, a mind unlike any other in Menzoberranzan, one that held no interest in power for its own sake. This made him an invaluable asset. Camuriel rose to lieutenant, bringing something entirely new to Bregan D'aerthe: psionic capability at the highest level. Dimension doors that moved agents across vast distances instantly, the ability to read minds, possess bodies, and extract information beyond the reach of arcane magic. His face was expressionless to the point that Jarlaxle famously described it as soulless, and his humor, when it surfaced at all, arrived dry and devastatingly precise. He held an arrogant disdain for arcane magic, but remained practical enough to work alongside wizards when it served the organization. Efficiency was his standard, and Bregan D'aerthe ran better for it. When Crenchinamon's influence compromised Jarlaxle's judgment, Camuriel took command of Bregan D'aerthe and held it with the same cold clarity he brought to everything. When Jarlaxle eventually returned, the two settled into a co-leadership arrangement, but the balance between them shifted permanently. By 1463, Camuriel was widely understood as the organization's primary leader. Jarlaxle continued to carry the name, the reputation, and the flamboyant public face of Bregan D'aerthe, operating more as a client rather than a commander, paying Camuriel directly for the band's services when his personal ventures required them. In practice, Jarlaxle had become the figurehead. Camuriel was running the organization. Where Jarlaxle is the soul of Bregan D'aerthe, Camuriel is its architecture. His connection to the Illithid hive mind has granted the organization an archive of intelligence no rival faction can match, and his secret ties to the Illithid Sept of Ilgact ran deeper still, connections known to almost no one within the Brotherhood, and perhaps fully understood only by Camuriel himself. Dineen Duerden arrived at Bregan D'aerthe after House Baenre destroyed House Duerden in 1339. With Jarlaxle's offer of shelter as his only alternative, Dineen accepted. He was a capable fighter, trained at Melee Magthair, and later an instructor there. He carried the bearing of a noble house that no longer existed, and the identity of a houseless rogue sat uneasily on him. His time with the band was restless and brief. When his sister Vierna launched her obsessive hunt for Drizzt, Dineen grew openly distrustful of her motives. Enraged by his defiance, Vierna transformed him into a Drider, damned forever to be a servant of Loth. His story did not end there. Dineen's path would wind through darker chapters still, eventually leading him back toward Bregan D'aerthe under circumstances neither he nor Jarlaxle could have ever anticipated. Rhaegai Bondalek served Bregan D'aerthe as both wizard and priest simultaneously, a combination rare enough to make him one of the organization's most formidable assets. He had been the high priest of Ched Nasad before a coup removed him from power. Jarlaxle had orchestrated that coup himself, manufacturing the man's fall specifically to recruit his talents, a fact Rhaegai carried to his grave. In Kalimport, he and Camuriel operated as near partners, sharing something that almost passed for friendship by Drow standards. When Jarlaxle grew distracted by Crunchinaban, Rhaegai began plotting to take control of Bregan D'aerthe. His resentment of Jarlaxle's attachment to the Shard and to the human Entrere proved a powerful motivator. Crunchinaban capitalized on his ambition and pressed him to overthrow Jarlaxle and take the Shard for himself. He and Camuriel moved together, but his reach extended one step too far attempting to claim Crunchinaban. He was abandoned by Camuriel, and Jarlaxle tricked the Red Dragon Hephaestus to end Rhaegai and his ambition permanently in fire. Bregan D'aerthe carried one of the most recognized names in Menzoberranzan. He was the son of matron Evenel herself and had spent his life at the peak of Drow martial society. Bregan was always overshadowed by Drizzt during his time at the academy, always coming up short in the grand melee. Still, he became a renowned lizard rider known for his mounted combat with the Death Lance, and eventually took the place of weapons master of House Baenre. When his mother died at Mithril Hall and the city descended into chaos, Jarlaxle moved quickly, approaching his younger brother in the aftermath. And though Bregan did not know of the familial tie, he threw in with Bregan D'aerthe rather than navigate the fracturing house politics alone. He too rose to high lieutenant and served as a primary field commander, executing operations with a precision that reflected decades of elite training. He expressed open discomfort around Camuriel's psionic reach and held the surface world in clear contempt. On the field, his execution was flawless, until his downfall came at the hands of Artemis Entrere on the wrong side of the fight in Bregan D'aerthe's attempted coup. Dabney Treyrock entered Bregan D'aerthe after helping Zaknafein kill her own mother, a deal brokered with Jarlaxle that dissolved House Treyrock and left her with a single path forward. Her early years within the organization were treacherous. She conspired with Arathis Hune and House Barristan del Armgo against Zaknafein, survived when he chose to spare her life since she had become his lover, and still navigated the fallout with a patience that outlasted everyone around her. She carried her divine power into Bregan D'aerthe, a priestess who had walked away from Loth and kept her gifts intact, making her the only functioning priestess within a brotherhood that had built itself outside the Spider Queen's hierarchy. One of the few women to hold a lasting place in the band, Dabney has remained close to Jarlaxle across the centuries and continues operating alongside him into the current age. Beniago Baenre came to Bregan D'aerthe through betrayal within his own house, forced out by Tiago Baenre's father before Jarlaxle took him in and eventually gave him Luskan as his domain. Operating under a human disguise maintained by an enchanted earring, he spent decades building his position in the city under the name Kurth, a red-haired, half-elven sea captain who claimed elvish blood to explain his unchanging appearance. By 1483 DR, he commanded the largest of Luskan's 5 fleets and held the title of its most powerful high captain. He grew so comfortable in the surface identity that he came to consider it his own. Through Beniago, Bregan D'aerthe controls the flow of trade, piracy, and intelligence along the northern Sword Coast. Brelan D'aerthe came to Bregan D'aerthe as a commoner with no house name, no noble blood, and no leverage. Jarlaxle noticed him in 1313 DR and brought him in on potential alone. That investment paid off. He became one of the band's most reliable field operatives, uncovering and tracking political shifts inside Menzoberranzan. When Dahlia Sinfel was planted as matron mother of the reconstituted House D'aerthe, it was Brelan who navigated the shifting power structures and kept the band integrated within Menzoberranzan politics. His standing within the organization has grown steadily ever since. As of 1510, Brelan operates as a lieutenant at a level equal to Beniago, serving as one of Jarlaxle's closest confidants and the organization's most trusted link between the surface world and Menzoberranzan. Artemis Entrere came to Bregan D'aerthe trapped in the Underdark with Jarlaxle as his only exit. In Kalimport, Entrere proved indispensable, navigating the city's criminal landscape and serving as the public face of the Bassadoni Guild operation while Jarlaxle directed from behind. He has operated alongside Bregan D'aerthe on multiple occasions since, but always on his own terms, always certain that his involvement is circumstantial. He and Jarlaxle are the closest thing to friends as either of them have. They are like brothers, but they both know how dangerous a brother in Menzoberranzan can be. Jarlaxle has counted Zaknafein D'Urden among Bregan D'aerthe's most valued collaborators since the organization's earliest days. The two forged a true friendship across decades of shared work, from the raid on House Simfrey to missions in Ched Nassad that helped establish the band's reputation. When Matron Malice named Zaknafein Weapons Master of House D'Urden, she closed that door formally. But the two always found a way to work together. Now, centuries later, Zaknafein operates alongside Jarlaxle on the surface. While Zaknafein has never officially been a member of the group, his friendship with Jarlaxle and his influence within the band have surely helped shape its story. Athragate is an unlikely addition to Bregan D'aerthe's roster as well, a dwarf of Citadel Felbar who lost his family to an orc raid and spent the following centuries as a hired killer. He crossed paths with Jarlaxle in the Bloodstone lands and became one of the Drow's closest companions. His twin Morning Stars, Cracker and Whacker, reduce iron and steel to rust flakes with a single 1-2 strike, and his habit of speaking in rhyming couplets accompanies a ferocity in battle that leaves most opponents sorely unprepared. He has rode alongside Jarlaxle through many adventures, including the Luskan Operation, the Ghost King Crisis, and the catastrophe at Gauntlegrim. Jarlaxle considers him a close friend. As of the current age, Athragate has pledged himself to King Brunner Battlehammer, a loyalty even Jarlaxle respects without question. Bregan D'aerthe began as a band of houseless males with nowhere to go and a leader clever enough to turn that into something the most powerful matrons in Menzoberranzan could not destroy. Over centuries, it became one of the most far-reaching factions in all of Faerun, a surface empire anchored in Luskan, a web of intelligence threading through the Underdark, and a roster drawn from every corner of Drow and non-Drow society alike. Jarlaxle's true intentions for what he built become clear in the organization's most recent chapter. When the civil war in Menzoberranzan finally broke the city's ancient power structures, Jarlaxle did not position Bregan D'aerthe to fill the vacuum. He led approximately 2,000 refugees out of the city, Drow who had chosen to live beyond Loth's reach. This was not the act of a mercenary only protecting his investment, but of someone who had been working toward this moment for centuries. His discovery of Caladay, the glacier city of the Avon Drow, gave him proof that Drow society without Loth was not only possible, but flourishing. Jarlaxle described Caladay as the realization of his dreams for the Drow. The organization he spent centuries building on the edge of heresy had been pointed in this direction all along. He freed his people, he changed what Drow society could be, and somehow, in the middle of all of it, he came out wealthier, better connected, and more powerful than anyone who ever tried to stop him, which, knowing Jarlaxle, was always part of the plan. If you want to bring the characters that define Bregan D'aerthe to your D&D game, head over to the Drow Historian Patreon. I have custom D&D 5.5e stat blocks for Jarlaxle, Camuriel, Rhaegai, and Zaknafane, along with my own Agents of Bregan D'aerthe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week for more lore from the Forgotten Realms and the Legend of Drizzt.